The press are trying to engineer a scrap between Big Ange Postecoglou, our manager, our man, and our former centre-half, Eric Dier, who of course has gone to Bayern Munich and will be playing in a huge quarter-final second leg tonight at the Allianz Arena against our biggest foes, Arsenal, in a game that is set up so nicely for potentially Harry Kane and Eric Dier to knock the Gooners out. I'll be talking more about that engineered non-story later in today's episode of Spurs News, but this is the Spurred On Podcast. I'm going to take you through some of the stories that have been coming up this week. Let's face it though, it's been a slow news week. I think Spurs journalists are always pretty smart after a big defeat not to try and knock out stories left, right and centre because they know that the clicks are just not going to be there. Tottenham fans, after that 4-0 defeat to Newcastle at St James's Park, pretty much keeping away from their devices, and rightly so. In fact, as I said in my episode on Monday, the only thing that maybe got us slightly more up than we would have been is the fact that Arsenal was so devastatingly bad against Aston Villa on Sunday, And I think it just shows what a league the Premier League is, where we can go to Villa Park, beat Aston Villa 4-0, and then they go to the Emirates and beat Arsenal 2-0 there. I know a lot of people will be saying, well, Aston Villa are definitely going to get fourth place now, but I wouldn't be so sure. I do think it looks more difficult for Tottenham to get that fourth place now, but Aston Villa will not be as pumped and up for the games that they are expected to win as they were against that Arsenal team, and that's where they've struggled a little bit. In fact, a lot of the teams around us, including us, have struggled to beat those teams who set up in low blocks, etc. And that is where Aston Villa could well come unstuck. And don't forget, they're still in the Europa Conference League as well. So it's not over yet, even though Tottenham have some difficult games coming up. And of course, as I said, Aston Villa looked so good. Anyway, getting on to that Spurs news. If you didn't see, Dele Ali was the guest pundit on Monday Night Football a couple of nights ago. He's obviously putting himself out there. His contract at Everton runs out this summer. Tottenham will not be getting any transfer fee now for letting Dele Ali go to Everton. His transfer fee or potential transfer fee was all based on amounts of appearances that Dele never played at Everton. We were due to get, I think, £10 million if he played another few games. That is now not going to happen. So Dele putting himself out there in the major television arena to, let's face it, let other clubs know that his contract is up, his injury is coming to an end, and he will be available for transfer this summer. He was saying that he has a goal for his future career that is the 2026 World Cup. He wants to get himself back to his best and maybe get selected for that World Cup. I have to say, I would love to see it, but that is a long way away because obviously I hope it's really freed him up that he did that amazing interview talking about his mental health and what a difficult childhood he had. But the fact is, he just hasn't been in good form for, I would say, probably 5 years minimum. And there are not a lot of examples in the history of football, not just British football, any football, where players who are so talented and so raw and so brilliant on the football pitch at the top level have dropped off, let their kind of life take over, the negatives in their life take over, and then come back to the very highest level. Like I said, I'd love to see it, but I don't know, it's a hard one. I'd love to be proven wrong. Let's see what Dele does. But he was asked on Monday Night Football about what it's like seeing Spurs and how they will do in the end this season. He says, I don't know how the fans will feel about the season if they don't qualify for the Champions League. I hope they do. But for me, it's been great watching as someone who used to play for Tottenham and has quite a big connection to the club, seeing them play the sort of football that I like to see Tottenham play. It has been good. So that's interesting. There were some other things he said as well that he alluded to, which was the idea that in the great teams of 15-16 and 16-17, where Spurs came third and then second behind Leicester and Arsenal, and then, of course, Antonio Conte's Chelsea's kind of steamrolling Chelsea 3-5-2 team. Dele was saying on Monday Night Football that the team who was so strong back then, the Spurs team, you know, Lloris, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Rose, Walker, Dembele, Dier, Wanyama came in. And then obviously Eriksen, Lamela is an option as well, Harry Kane, all of those players. They felt that they had it in them to win something, but that they needed one extra push. And he was alluding to the fact that maybe that was one extra kind of big name player, maybe somebody who had won it all before, somebody who could really help them cross the line. And a lot of people on Twitter, of course, and on social media have been saying, you know, that's Daniel Levy's fault. And look, you know, directly it is Daniel Levy's fault, but we were building that stadium at the time. And I've said it time and time again. The stadium plan had been put in place in 2008, and really Pochettino was ahead of schedule where he got Spurs. He did an incredible job, and that side was an incredible side. And yeah, I agree. You know, if we could have had one big signing then, a 50, 60, 70 million pound signing who'd seen it and done it and could have taken us over the line into the promised land, that would have been everything. But at that point, I just don't think the funds were there, unfortunately. But it was good to see Dele Alli back on our screens. And he talked a lot about how he always wanted to take his natural personality and the way he played kind of park football and street football onto the pitch with him. And his halcyon days at Spurs, he really was that kind of raw, untouched, unmedia trained player, both on and off the pitch. And on the pitch, you know, just trying nutmegs all the time, trying instinctive things like that goal at Crystal Palace. Those memories will never be forgotten. And if it comes to this summer and Everton don't give him a new contract, which it looks like they're not, I would love to see Spurs open their arms out to him and say, come and train with us. Come and train with us over the summer, over the pre-season. I'm not saying we'll sign him. He doesn't strike me as an Ange Postecoglou player, but come and train with us, get up to full fitness, and then see what happens. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. Next up, there are some rumours doing the rounds amongst the journalists that Sheffield United, who will undoubtedly be relegated from the Premier League this season, are looking to loan our centre-half Ashley Phillips next season. He's currently on loan at Plymouth Argyle. I think he's done okay there, but Plymouth are obviously not a great side, although they did get a really good win recently. But looks like Sheffield United under Chris Wilder are interested in him. I think that would be a great move. A team who've just come down from the Premier League. They'll be looking to bounce straight back up, so they'll be at the top kind of echelons of the Championship, and give Ashley Phillips a chance to play there and hopefully play some football there as well, because Chris Wilder does like to play his football along the ground when he can. Maybe can't at the moment because they're in such a relegation scrap, but next season I'd expect them to do that, and maybe it would give a chance for Ashley Phillips to play in a 4 at the back as well, because I think he's been playing in a 3 at the back for Ashley Phillips for Plymouth, and obviously Ange doesn't really play a 3 at the back, so keep your eyes open for that one. Wanted to take you through some James Maddison post-Newcastle debacle quotes. He was very down in his post-match interview. I think he really feels it more than most, or at least he lets it be shown in media interviews when things are not going well. And I think he knows that his form isn't quite there and hasn't been there since the injury, and he kind of let that all come out in his post-match quotes. He said, "I can only apologise to the fans for the fact that they had to witness that scoreline," meaning the 4-0 at Newcastle, of course. "We weren't good enough, and we have to accept that, look in the mirror and know we weren't good enough. It wasn't just a fluke. It wasn't that they got lucky goals. We weren't good enough today to a man. We need to have a stern talking to ourselves to pick ourselves up, because we can have a period of mourning if you like, get over it, but you've got to quickly switch on. The Premier League comes thick and fast, and we've got a big game next," by which he means the Arsenal game coming up in about 10 days' time. They'll play a few games before then, starting with Bayern Munich tonight. Let's hope they get absolutely rattled and turned over. I know they've got Wolves away. I think they've got Chelsea as well before they play us. So a lot of running to be done, a lot of miles in their legs before the next game, and I hope that Maddison takes that kind of disappointment into the changing room and lets everybody know how important this is, that we bounce back amazingly against Arsenal. Finally, in today's Spurs news, as I mentioned at the top, Ange Postecoglou has replied to Eric Dier's interview that he did with Sky in the overlap, during which he kind of talked about how Ange, in the training that he did in the 6 months that Eric Dier was there with him, didn't really do tactical work. This is the quote from Eric Dier from the overlap. He says, "Interestingly, Ange really doesn't do any tactical work in training. What he does is every single drill from Monday to Friday is drawn up to represent the way he wants to play. With Conte, I could do it blind, but that was a lot of tactical work Monday to Friday, a lot of 10 versus 0 walkthroughs. You were so well drilled, it would be ingrained in you." Now, to me, that by no means is Eric Dier saying he disliked Ange. And in fact, if you watch the rest of the interview, he was waxing lyrical about Ange and how impressed he was, which was incredible considering how little Ange was interested in letting Eric Dier play. However, the press asked Ange about this, and I think have tried to engineer some kind of scrap between them, because the headlines they're using is that, Big Ange bites back, etc. But actually, I think Ange answers this pretty calmly, and it all makes sense. He says, "It's probably something you'd have to ask Eric Dier. I don't know what you mean by tactical work. Everything we do is geared on how we're going to play our football. So for me, by extension, that is tactical work. Whether that's on us or whether it's on the opposition. In fact, I would probably say we don't do anything apart from tactical work. That's all we do every day. If we're working on our fitness, we're still trying to play our football." But I haven't seen the interview, so I'm not sure what he's referencing. If you're talking about what we do in training, where we're standing around and working on how we're going to stop an opposition, how we're going to break them down, no, we don't do that. But I don't think that's the only kind of tactical work that exists. I think anyone who trains with us will tell you that all we do is train the way we play. Maybe that's not tactical work. I don't know. I think basically that answers it perfectly. What Eric Dier to me was saying is that under Antonio Conte, it was very drilled and dull and boring. 11 against 0, where you've got to be on the pitch compared to where the ball is every time. And with Ange, it's not like that at all. It's about playing strategies. It's about movement with and without the ball, making runs, and where the ball should get to make the most chances we possibly can. I went to the open training session a couple of months ago. I saw it. They did the drill time and time again that we've scored from time and time again this season. Getting wide men to the byline, cutting it back, scoring goals. And that is tactical work. I think Eric Dier just said tactical work to mean, boring drill stuff where there's no football being played. And Big Ange is saying, I think Eric probably said that too. So there's no real scrap to be had there at all. Finally, England under-17 starlet Mikey Moore, our young starlet, only 16 years old, has been called up to first team training this week. He was taken out of a Spurs under-18 game. He scored 16 goals and had 9 assists in just 14 appearances for the under-18s this season. And this is good news for me, bringing up players who deserve it from our academy, giving them opportunities to train with the first team. I personally don't think he's ready to maybe get on the bench or start for the first team. He needs to kind of muscle up a little bit. If you look at 16-year-olds who play in the Premier League, it tends to only be the ones who've really got a lot of size on them and a lot of build. Wayne Rooney, for instance, when he came through at Everton. But it's great news because Mikey Moore is highly thought of within the Spurs Academy, and it looks really exciting that he's getting some training time with the first team. Thanks, guys, for watching and listening. Please do press like and subscribe and go over to the podcast platforms, be it Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Give me a follow over there or a subscribe. And you can be a Spurred On Pro or Patreon member, just £1 a month to help support the daily content here. All the details are in the description box. Most importantly, come on, you Spurs.